Heartwarming revelation, Soldier and K9 uncover amazing truth after little girl's touching whisper. Jake sat on the fringes of the bustling community center, lost in a world that felt oddly foreign. Bright laughter wrapped around him, the joyful chorus of children echoed, but he felt like an invisible wall separated him from their warmth. The sun beat down on the playground with an intensity that mirrored the turmoil inside his chest. Struggling with shadows from his past deployment, he often felt judged and misunderstood by a neighborhood that once filled him with pride. He ran a hand through his hair and glanced at Max, his K9 companion, who sat loyally beside him, sensing his unease. The dog's soft, wise eyes told Jake he wasn't alone in this struggle. A timid voice broke through the laughter. "Excuse me, mister." Jake turned to find Lily, a small girl with scuffed sneakers and an earnest look in her eyes. Her vulnerability tugged at something deep inside him. She'd been watching him, he realized, noticing the small acts of kindness he performed when nobody else did. For a moment, they locked eyes, a moment of unspoken understanding between a soldier and a little girl grappling with their own battles. Taking a deep breath, she leaned closer and whispered, "I think you should tell us stories. You make the words feel like magic." In those simple words, Jake felt a crack open in his heart, releasing years of pressure and isolation. Stories. He had always loved them but had buried that passion beneath layers of doubt and pain like so many before him. Suddenly, the embers of hope sparked to life. As he tentatively shared a tale with the small crowd of children, their faces transformed into bright smiles. Laughter bubbled up, a balm to his wounded spirit. Each word he spoke infused the air with a warmth that wrapped around him and the young audience. He saw Max's tail wagging softly in approval, and for the first time since returning, Jake felt a sense of belonging. Word spread like wildfire. "Come and listen to the storyteller." The kids shouted, chasing away the ghosts of judgment in his mind. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The tides began to shift. Suddenly, people sought him out. Invitations poured in, and with them came the weight of expectation. Jake's mind danced between excitement and apprehension. He had opened a door, but could he truly walk through? Community events began to fill his calendar, and he found himself seated amidst debates at town hall. One night, they discussed funding for veterans, and tension crackled like a live wire in the room. The air thickened, suffocated by anger, as voices clashed and questions of economic disparity floated heavy in the atmosphere. With Max by his side, Jake felt an unfamiliar energy surging within him. He gripped the podium, his heart racing, no longer just an observer but a voice demanding to be heard. As he stood there, sharing a piece of himself, his story resonating with those in the room, an unwelcome interruption cast shadows over his intentions. Doubt teetered on the edge of his resolve. Faces in the crowd blurred into a collective gaze of scrutiny and hope. Could he bridge the gap? Could he stand firm against old prejudices? As he looked into the sea of eyes, he felt both the weight of judgment and the promise of connection. Jake took a deep breath, ready to fight for his place in this world, a world he thought he had lost. Would a forgotten soldier and a lost little girl truly shape their community, or would old wounds prove too deep to heal? The answer awaited him as the crowd's silent anticipation hung thick in the air. Jake's heart hammered in his chest, a frantic drum echoing the uncertainty swirling in the room. The podium felt both familiar and foreign. He could see the faces, some softened by understanding, others hardened with skepticism. The tension was palpable, intertwined with the whispers of the past and the flickers of hope for the future. As he began to speak, recounting his experiences, Jake let his guard down. I remember the first time I met Max, he said, glancing down at his loyal companion who stirred at the sound of his name. He was a scared pup, just like I was when I returned home. The children had laughed at the antics of Max, but adults leaned in closer, captivated by the vulnerability laid bare before them. I was lost, he continued, the weight of the words pulling at his chest. I thought fighting was the only way I could prove myself. But sometimes it's the quiet battles that are the hardest. A hushed silence swept through the crowd, as if they could almost feel the echoes of his past reverberating off the walls of the center. Lily's bright eyes sparkled with curiosity as she listened, her grip tightening on the edge of her seat. Encouraged by her presence, Jake pushed forward. Telling stories became my way of healing. It's funny how a little imagination can take you far away from pain. The honesty of his voice seemed to wrap itself around the audience, every heart now sensing the shared journey of healing he proposed. The conversation started to shift in the aftermath of his words. People exchanged glances, nods of understanding, and even small smiles. Jake had opened a door, not just for himself, but for the community. They began sharing their own stories and experiences, a tapestry of collective suffering and joy. Some voices cracked under the weight of emotion, but others were filled with hope. Jake, can you tell us about the time you saved Max? One girl piped up, her curiosity infectious. Laughter erupted again, filling Jake's heart with warmth. The storyteller and story were merging with the hearts that gathered around. A young boy called out, "Yeah. And did he really chase a squirrel like you said?" It felt liberating, like a breath of fresh air slicing through years of confinement. Jake lost himself in the moment, the tension from earlier dissipating. The crowd transformed into a community, and the whispered tales of fear and hope intertwined with laughter and light. Max moved among the children, his tail wagging as they reached out to pet him, their giggles punctuating the air. But just as Jake thought he had conquered the storm within and outside him, he caught a glimpse of a figure standing at the back, arms folded, an expression of skepticism etched deep on his brow. The man's eyes weren't welcoming, they were accusatory. Jake's heart thudded again, sensing that even though he was finding courage, some people still wouldn't change their minds. A chill crept back into the warmth of the moment as Jake recognized the man. He was a fellow veteran, someone who had shared the battlefield but who had struggled to reconcile his own traumas. The looming presence stirred something inside Jake, pulling at the threads of connection he was building. Would this man's judgment undo the fragile bond they were stitching together? As the laughter faded, a tension built in the air once more. Jake could feel all eyes shifting, uncertain of what was coming next. Could he address the doubts etched in the shadows of that man's gaze? Or would his journey falter before it ever truly began? He took a deep breath, stunned by the sudden weight on his shoulders. This was more than just a story, this was his truth laid bare. Would it resonate, or would it fracture? Jake squared his shoulders, the soft sounds of the children still floating around him, anchoring him in the moment. And just as he opened his mouth to reply, he saw a flicker of recognition in the man's eyes, a glimmer of something deeper. What was coming to light? Would one more story turn the tide? Jake felt a rush of adrenaline as all eyes pinned him in place. The laughter and warmth from earlier was abruptly overshadowed by the weight of that man's gaze. He could almost hear the unspoken challenge hanging in the air. It wasn't just a face in the crowd, this was a memory, a reminder of battles fought and wounds still raw. "Look," Jake said, deciding to address the tension directly, his voice steadying with each word. "I know what you might be thinking. I've been where you are. We've all been in dark places, feeling trapped and alone." He looked across the room, finding Lily's curious gaze and the supportive nods from a few others. "This isn't about me proving anything." His eyes flicked to the man again, searching for something, maybe understanding, maybe empathy. "It's about sharing these moments that help us heal. We can fight our demons together." The man shifted slightly, his arms uncrossing, if only just. Jake saw a hint of something soften in his expression, but the skepticism still lingered. What do you know about real pain, Jake? He finally asked, his voice low but biting. Jake inhaled sharply, the question stinging. Real pain. It echoed in his mind like a siren. He knew all too well. Too much, he admitted, his tone barely above a whisper. I've lost friends. I've watched the nightmares seep into the lives of those I love. He paused, glancing at Max, who seemed to sense the gravity of the moment and moved closer to Jake. What I've learned is that the fight doesn't have to be just within us. Sometimes, the toughest battles are fought in silence, and we only win when we share our stories. A tremor of restlessness rippled through the audience, as if they were collectively holding their breath. Jake could almost feel the curiosity bubbling under the surface, urging him on. Max here saved my life. Not from an enemy, but from myself. His voice cracked slightly, but he pressed on. On days I didn't want to get out of bed, he was there, nudging my hand, reminding me that the world still held beauty. He taught me that sometimes, it's the connection we forge with others that pulls us back from the edge. He noticed the man's skeptical look falter, just for a second. I decided to turn my pain into purpose. I wanted to share that with all of you. We might be wounded, but we're not broken. Together, we can create a space where stories don't just linger in our hearts, but resonate with others. Jake saw nods from several in the audience. There was a ripple of acknowledgement. He felt warmth creeping back into the atmosphere, the laughter and smiles reigniting like embers. But it was the man that interested him most now, the one whose eyes held a storm of emotions. Tell us a different story. A story that matters to us all, the man finally spoke, his voice softer, carrying something that resembled curiosity rather than hostility. Jake's heart leaped. Perhaps he'd found the connection that he needed. What if he began, letting the words roll off his tongue? What if I told you about that day in the park when Max did something remarkable? The audience settled in, leaning closer, anticipation igniting their expressions. But Jake felt that familiar pang of anxiety at the thought of revealing the truth about that day, the day when Max truly showed him the meaning of friendship, loyalty, and redemption. Could this story bridge the gap? Would it touch not just those seeking solace, but also the man standing in judgment? He took a deep breath, ready to unfold a new layer of courage, of understanding. Could this be the moment that transformed everything? Jake paused, looking into the eyes of the man who had once challenged him, waiting for the right moment before diving into the heart of the story. The stakes had never felt higher. Would this be the turning point or just another false start? Jake's hands trembled slightly as he gripped the edge of the podium, steadying himself. The memories surged back, vivid and relentless. He could almost smell the earth and grass of that park, hear the distant laughter of children mingled with the soft rustling of leaves. On that day, he began, his voice steadying, Max and I were just trying to escape the noise in our heads. Both of us had been fighting shadows that didn't seem to fade, trapped in a world that felt heavier than it should. He glanced down briefly, then returned his gaze to the audience, feeling a swell of determination. It was one of those sunny afternoons that almost felt too perfect, a stark contrast to the storms within us. I remember sitting on a bench, head in my hands, feeling utterly lost when I spotted a little girl, maybe 5 or 6. She had this golden hair that danced in the breeze and a smile that lit up the world. As he spoke, the faces in the room leaned in, reactions swirling through the group. Curiosity, a flicker of hope, and something else. Was it longing? She ran toward us, her laughter bright like sunshine. Max, trusting and playful, had noticed her too. He stood instantly, tail wagging, waiting for that little pat on the head he loved so much. Jake's heart warmed at the thought. But she didn't just want to pet him. No, she had something to say. Jake took a breath, remembering how time stopped then. This little girl approached me, looked right into my eyes, and whispered something that seemed so simple at the time. You're not alone, mister. You have your dog. He loves you. A flicker passed through the audience, the weight of her words sinking in. Jake felt the words crash into him again. That innocent reminder had pierced through his fog, stirring something deep within him. "I'll be honest," he confessed, "I laughed it off at first. A kid saying something cute, right? But as I watched her play with Max, something shifted. They were playing fetch, her tiny hands throwing the ball with all her might, her laughter filling the space. And in that moment, I felt the walls I built around my heart start to crack." Jake's voice caught as the memory deepened. Simple, pure joy. I realized that she saw something I had overlooked in my despair. Love. Unconditional love. He could feel the interest in the room shift to something profound, personal. The man who had challenged him was now silently hanging on to every word. That girl, she didn't know the battles I was fighting. But in that moment, she reminded me that battles can be faced with support, those we love beside us, lifting us up. I got to see Max in a new light. Not just as my companion, but as my lifeline. Jake hesitated, letting that moment sit with the crowd. There was a palpable energy, the recognition of shared experiences, the echoes of pain, hope, and connection. I learned that day that healing often comes in the simplest forms. Sometimes, it's just a single, heartfelt reminder that you're never truly alone. He felt the atmosphere change, resonating with a newfound understanding. Perhaps this story had touched them, ignited something hopeful. But Jake couldn't shake the sense of unease. Would they understand just how deeply those words affected him? Sometimes we just need a little voice, like that girl's, to pierce through the darkness, he concluded, resting his gaze on the man. And now, we have each other to remind us when the shadows loom large. The crowd murmured, a mix of appreciation and contemplation. The man's earlier skepticism had shifted into something else entirely. It was a flicker of recognition, maybe even vulnerability. And then, Jake posed a question that hung heavy in the air, filled with possibility. What small moment could you share that helped you see the light in your darkest hour? Jake held his breath, sensing the shift in the room, and he was ready to listen. Would the next voice change everything? Jake leaned against the podium, heart racing as he awaited a response. The room, dimly lit and filled with faces etched in various stages of reflection, seemed to hold its breath. He was ready for someone to speak up, to share their own moment of clarity, but the silence stretched on, heavy and thick. Just as doubt began to creep into his mind, a voice broke through the quiet. "I have something." A young woman in the front row shifted nervously. Her hands clasped together, and her eyes darted between Jake and the floor. Jake smiled at her, encouraging. "Please, go ahead." She took a breath, relying on the strength of those around her. "After my sister passed, I felt lost. It felt like nothing could lift me out of that dark place. One day, I was walking my dog in the park." Her voice wavered, but she pressed on. "There was this little girl, maybe around the same age as the one you mentioned. She came up to me, just like your story. She smiled and patted my dog's head. Then she looked at me and said, 'Dogs can smell sad. He's trying to make you feel better.'" A ripple of warmth coursed through the audience. Jake felt his chest tighten, echoes of his past merging with her story. "That hit me," she continued, her voice stronger now. "I realized I was shutting everyone out, trying to cope alone. But I wasn't really alone, was I? Not with my dog or with the good memories of my sister or even with the kindness of that sweet little girl." The audience felt that shift, a collective inhale of recognition. Jake's heart swelled with gratitude for her courage. "Thank you for sharing that," he replied, sincerity dripping from every word. "It's amazing how children can see beyond our pain, isn't it? They often sense what we cannot." A few more voices chimed in then, each one a special thread weaving the shared fabric of vulnerability and healing. Stories flowed about lost love, battles with depression, a cherished pet who brought light in dark times. Each story echoed Jake's own, creating a tapestry of connection that infused the air with warmth and understanding. Minutes passed like seconds, with laughter and tears blending seamlessly. In that small room, under flickering fluorescent lights, the shadows lifted bit by bit, as stories resonated and resonated. Eventually, Jake felt an urgency rising in him. There was something deeper that needed to come out. "Can I ask you all something?" he said, his eyes scanning the group. "We've talked about moments that brought us light, but what about the shadows we still fight? What keeps haunting you? What do you wish you could say or do?" The atmosphere shifted again, and a few glances exchanged. Jake could sense the tension, the weight of unspoken fears. Finally, a man in the back spoke up, his voice deep but shaky. "I wish I could find a way to forgive myself. I made choices I can't take back, and it haunts me every single day." Jake felt a pang of empathy, recognizing that burden. "You're not alone in that," he admitted, heart aching for the man. "Many of us carry those kinds of burdens. But what if we try to take small steps forward together?" The conversation flowed from there, shifting into something practical, something they could latch onto: a proposal for a weekly group where they could share not just moments of hope, but also the things weighing them down. As feelings of unity filled the space, Jake felt a rush of excitement mixed with trepidation. "Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to ponder. What's one small step you can take toward forgiveness, toward healing, this week?" Eyes lit up with intrigue, and Jake could sense the wheels turning. He held on to that energy, the anticipation of answers yet to come. Would they rise to the challenge, ready to confront their shadows and support each other forward? The air crackled with potential, and Jake couldn't help but wonder how this moment would echo into the next chapter of their journey together. Jake watched as the room breathed in that shared anticipation. Light danced upon faces now lit with possibilities. He knew this was just the beginning. The young woman who had shared her story earlier sat quietly, contemplating Jake's question. Her fingers drummed softly on the arm of her chair. The man who spoke of his regrets shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe I can call my mom," he finally murmured, voice barely above a whisper. "I haven't spoken to her in ages." The group felt a wave of courage ripple through the air. One by one, they began to share their small steps, each idea a tiny beacon of hope. "I could start journaling," another participant said, a hint of excitement in her tone. "Get my thoughts out in the open, instead of bottling them up." "I want to reach out to an old friend, too," added a man with a crooked grin. "To apologize for being such a jerk all those years ago." With every idea shared, the tension in the room seemed to dissolve just a little more. Jake felt the momentum build, his heart swelling with pride. Each voice, every confession, stitched together a patchwork of bravery and vulnerability. Then, out of the blue, laughter erupted from a corner of the room. It was the older gentleman, his laughter deep and infectious. "You all are talking about taking steps forward, but I can't stop thinking about that little girl's comment. Dogs can smell sad, my buddy Charlie always knows when I'm down. Maybe I should take him to that adoption event next weekend." The mood lightened like a soft sunrise. They began to chuckle and share stories of their pets, the warmth of laughter weaving through the remnants of sorrow. But as the laughter faded, the group turned serious again. The room hummed with intense emotion as they returned to the core of the gathering. The air thickened as they grasped again at the weight of their struggles. "Is it really possible to forgive ourselves?" The woman from the front row interjected, her eyes wide with uncertainty. "What if we don't feel worthy of that forgiveness?" Her question hung in the air, heavy and thought-provoking. Jake's heart raced. He understood all too well her sentiment, the fear that lingered beneath the surface. He could see reflection in every pair of eyes around him. "That feeling of unworthiness, it's something we all battle," Jake responded, feeling an urgency to reassure them. "But I believe that forgiveness is more about freeing ourselves than it is about what we deserve. It's a gift we give ourselves." He felt a shared connection through their collective uncertainty, the struggle to find light in a world that sometimes felt so dark. Together, we can remind each other, Jake continued, scanning the crowd to meet their hopeful gazes. When we stumble, it's okay. Reach out, talk to us. We're in this together. As he spoke, something shifted again within the group. Several heads nodded slowly. There was a glimmer of understanding, a sense that the journey they were embarking on was not solely about their burdens, but also about sharing the weight. Jake felt fire ignite within, a determination to be not just the leader, but a fellow traveler on this road of recovery. And as the time for the meeting drew near its end, he knew their next gathering could be the real turning point. "Let us check in again next week," he suggested, heart pounding with excitement. "And we'll dive deeper into this idea of self-forgiveness. Maybe even share exercises to help each other. From all I've heard today, I believe this group is on the brink of something truly powerful." A collective buzz rippled through the audience, a mixture of anxiety and hope. They leaned toward him with hungry hearts, eager for what lay ahead. But that night, as Jake lay awake thinking over the day, shadows of doubt crept back in. Was he really ready to guide these souls through their pain? Had he any right to speak on forgiveness when his own heart was still heavy? Little did he know, that somewhere in the vast tapestry of their shared stories, the answer awaited him just a heartbeat away. Would the weight of his own unresolved struggles somehow reveal the path to healing for them all? The next week came quickly, yet Jake felt the weight of every passing day. As he prepared for the meeting, his stomach twisted in knots. He stood at the front of the room, fiddling with the papers in front of him, unable to shake the doubts that loomed larger with each moment. What if he was leading them astray? What if he failed to guide them the way they deserved? One by one, familiar faces trickled in, bringing with them a blend of anxiety and anticipation. He recognized the woman from last week, her fingers still drumming nervously on the arm of her chair. The man who had considered reaching out to his mother entered, his shoulders a little lighter, a trace of determination in his eyes. "Hey, Jake," he called out, a hopeful brightness piercing through the uncertainty. "I actually called her. It felt great." "Wow, that's amazing." Jake beamed at him, the sincerity catching some of the tension from his chest. Encouragement lightened his heart, if only for a moment. As more participants settled in, it didn't take long for the mood to shift again. Each person updated the group about their efforts, their victories, even their setbacks. The atmosphere eventually crackled with a familiar energy, a sense of unyielding support. "Journaling's opened some doors for me," the woman said, her voice soothing as she spoke of her progress. "It's like letting the pressure escape. I realized I've been locking away so much pain." "Me too. I reached out to that friend," the crooked grin man added, his face brightening with recollections. "We ended up laughing about old times." It was a relief to hear his voice again. Each story shared was a lifeline for those still caught in doubt. Laughter and nods of agreement filled the space. Even Jake felt a flicker of joy rise inside him. Yet, every laugh had an accompanying whisper of his own unresolved pain. "Today, let us explore the idea of self-forgiveness a little deeper," Jake initiated, gazing across the room, where hope bounced between eager faces. "What does it really mean to forgive ourselves?" A hush fell. Then the woman who had first questioned self-worth spoke again, her voice steadying. "Forgiveness is hard, especially when the pain is self-inflicted. Can you really move on? Can you be whole again?" That question sent ripples through the crowd. People's expressions shifted, uncertainty returning like an unwelcome visitor. Jake felt it too, the air thickening once more. "It's about acknowledging the hurt we've caused," Jake said, clenching his fists in determination. "But it's also recognizing that none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. What matters is how we choose to respond to them." He noticed the older gentleman nodding slowly, as if he were realizing something deep. Jake pressed on. "I believe that forgiveness begins with compassion towards ourselves. If we can't show ourselves kindness, how can we heal? Once again, silence enveloped the room. But this time, it carried nuance, a quiet anticipation, the kind that hints at transformation. Then, unexpectedly, the old man raised a hand. You know, I used to think I was past forgiveness. But after hearing you all, I want to offer myself another chance, like I do for anyone else. It's time to let go. A round of subdued applause broke out, sincere and heartfelt, resonating throughout the walls. Jake's breath hitched at that moment, the realization washing over him like a cleansing wave. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone in this journey. Perhaps in their collective struggle, they could indeed find healing together. That's what this is about, isn't it? Jake said, feeling a surge of courage spiral inside him. It's messy. It's hard. But we're here to lift each other up. He paused, catching the group's gaze before walking slowly to the front. And who knows? The next time you have a setback, just remember you're not alone. Reach out. Lean in. Let us hold hands as we navigate this together. As the meeting drew near its conclusion and hearts felt a little lighter, Jake knew that this was only the beginning. A glimmer of hope lingered in the air. When he saw that same woman who had first spoken about unworthiness smiling faintly, he felt a spark of warmth envelop him. The path to healing was opening not just for them, but for him as well. But little did he know that a chance encounter outside the gathering awaited him, one that would unlock a pivotal truth about his own heart. What awaited him was a lesson he had never anticipated. After the meeting wrapped up, Jake felt lighter in his heart. He lingered at the door, watching the participants slowly exit, each face illuminated by newfound hope. Their laughter echoed behind him, a sweet reminder of the connections he had fostered. It was in that moment of shared vulnerability that Jake understood the power of community. But just as he was about to leave, a soft voice broke through the fading chatter. "Excuse me, Jake?" It was the woman who had first shared her struggles about self-worth. She stepped closer, her eyes shimmering with something unspoken. "Yeah, hi. How are you feeling now?" Jake asked, genuinely glad to see her opening up even more. I feel like I need to tell you something important," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Before this group, I felt like I was drowning. But now, I can see a spark of light. I want you to know how much you've helped us." Jake's cheeks flushed with the unexpected compliment. "Thank you. But it's really about all of us together. We're in this as a team." "Yes, but you started this," she insisted, leaning in as if sharing a secret. "It takes courage to stand in front of others, to be vulnerable. You're leading us in ways you can't even see." At her words, he felt a mix of pride and guilt swirling inside him. "I just want to help. That's all. Helping is huge, Jake." She paused, biting her lip as she gathered her thoughts. "I wanted to tell you something else, but I didn't know how. I recently lost my father, and I thought I couldn't get through it. But you saying it's okay to forgive ourselves. It helped me begin to move on." Jake's heart ached for her loss. "I'm so sorry," he said softly. "That's so tough." Before she could respond, the atmosphere around them suddenly shifted. A commotion outside drew their attention. An excited bark rang out, and then a child's laughter burst through the door as a little girl sprinted into the room, dragging a large, playful canine behind her. The dog's tail wagged furiously, and its tongue lolled out as it tried to keep up with the girl's energy. "Look! Come see!" she squealed, her innocence wrapping around the room like a warm hug. Jake couldn't help but smile as the girl raced towards him, the dog bounding right after her. "What's your name?" he asked, kneeling to meet her eye level. "I'm Lily." She grinned, pointing to the dog. "This is Max. He's my best friend." "Well, hey there, Lily. "Nice to meet you." And Max, something about her pure joy resonated within him, washing away his previous uncertainty. Then, she leaned in a little closer, whispering, "Do you know a secret?" Intrigued, Jake leaned closer. "What is it?" Lily looked around conspiratorially before saying, "Max knows how to help people feel better. He can show you how to be happy, even when things are tough. Just listen to him." Her words hung in the air, somehow profound, reverberating with Jake's own experiences. The woman beside him smiled, perhaps sensing the warmth of the moment. Before anyone could respond, Lily began to prance around, Max in tow, barking joyfully. The sound shattered the lingering tension and drew everyone's attention, turning somber reflections into laughter once again. As Jake watched them, a thought ignited in his mind. Had he misunderstood healing? Was it really so simple? Accepting joy could coexist with pain, just as Max's boundless energy could lighten the heaviness in their hearts. But what struck him next was an urge he couldn't shake off. What if this little girl's innocent truth was a guiding light? And could a simple dog, a creature of love and loyalty, hold the key to their deeper healing? His pulse quickened at the prospect of discovering what lay ahead. With a newfound sense of purpose igniting in his chest, Jake resolved to invite Lily and Max back again. Maybe they'd reveal even more about reaching for joy amidst life's storms. As the laughter swirled around him, he couldn't help but wonder what further lessons were awaiting him just on the horizon. The chance meeting felt like a blessing, a whisper from his heart urging him to explore the boundless potential of love and healing yet to come. Jake nestled into the warmth of the moment as laughter filled the room. Lily's energy was infectious, her innocent giggles echoing against the walls, breaking down the barriers that often held people back from connecting. Max bounded around her, his tail wagging like a helicopter propeller, capturing the spirit of the room and lifting everyone's mood higher. "I've never seen a dog so happy," Jake exclaimed, watching as Max playfully leaped into the legs of a participant, eliciting cheers and laughter from the crowd. "Max makes everybody smile." Lily beamed, clearly proud of her furry friend. "He's super special." "Yeah? How does he do that?" Jake inquired, bending closer to Lily. He felt as though she was about to reveal some grand secret. "Because he loves people. And people love him back," she said, her eyes sparkling with sincerity. "Even when they're sad, he knows how to make them feel better. Just by being him." Jake let her words sink in. The simplicity of her message held a profound truth. Sometimes, healing didn't need to be complicated. It was about connection, unconditional love, and being present with one another. He found himself smiling, feeling grateful for this little girl and her four-legged companion. As the meeting wrapped up, participants made their way to the exit, exchanging hugs and promises to return. Jake watched the woman he'd been speaking with earlier, her face blooming with hope. He felt lighter as he realized the impact they were creating together. "Lily," he called out, kneeling so the little girl would meet his eyes. "Would you and Max come back next week? I think we could all use you both." "Can we, Max?" Lily squealed, the joy spilling over in her voice. Max barked, as if to say yes, and Jake's heart soared at the mere thought of their presence once more. The idea of having them return was exciting, a spark of possibility igniting within him. Later that evening, Jake found himself restless. He laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day's events in his mind. The laughter, the words of encouragement, and the pure joy of a child weaved into the fabric of his memory. Suddenly, he sat up, gripped by a thought that filled him with anxiety. What if he wasn't giving the group everything they needed? What if he was only scratching the surface, never really uncovering the deeper healing they all yearned for? That night, he rummaged through his bookshelf, pulling out books on healing and resilience. He scribbled down ideas, contemplating sessions focusing on forgiveness, grief, joy, and love. As he mapped out his vision, an overwhelming sense of purpose coursed through him. He felt the stirring of a new chapter unfolding. But then, a tiny flicker of doubt crept in. What if his ideas fell flat? What if he failed to connect with them in ways they truly needed? Suddenly, a wave of uncertainty washed over him. The passion that had propelled him forward earlier dimmed slightly under scrutiny. He set his notebook down and took a deep breath. "Just breathe," he whispered to himself. "You're not alone in this. They're all here to grow, together." The reassuring thought of the community they were building wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. But as he pulled the covers close, another thought surfaced, echoing from Lily's words, "Just listen to him." Maybe Max and Lily weren't just companions. Perhaps their simple wisdom could lead to a transformative experience for everyone. With that train of thought, an idea blossomed. What if Max could be a part of their sessions? A light-hearted, playful influence amidst the heavier topics. Jake fell asleep with the image of the K9 at their gatherings dancing through his mind. As the morning light trickled through his window, Jake awoke with clarity. Maybe it was time to embrace a new approach, blending laughter, honesty, and the warmth of four-legged companionship into their healing journey. With anticipation coursing through him, he picked up his phone, ready to reach out to Lily's mother. But as he dialed, he couldn't shake the feeling that this step was just the beginning. What if this would lead to something even more transformative than he could imagine? The phone rang, and he held his breath, ready to invite Lily and Max into a shared adventure. But as he waited for an answer, a flicker of uncertainty made him wonder, what if this was the moment when everything would change, not just for them, but for him as well? Jake's heart raced as that all-too-familiar sound buzzed softly on the other end. Lily's mother picked up, and a friendly voice greeted him. "Hello? Hi, it's Jake. I was thinking about this past week with Lily and Max, and I wanted to propose something." He felt something shift inside, an electric charge of possibility sparking between them. As he unfolded his plan to include Lily and Max in future sessions, Jake felt like he was not just sharing an idea, he was inviting them into something magical. "Wow, that sounds wonderful." Her voice bubbled with enthusiasm. "Lily would be thrilled. She talks about Max and their adventures all the time." That joy in her voice fueled Jake's courage. "Great. I believe having a therapy dog could create an even deeper connection for everyone. Max's presence can help people share and heal in ways we haven't explored yet." The agreement was instant, and as they hung up, Jake couldn't help but smile. A sense of trepidation lingered, but the weight that usually rested on his shoulders felt lighter. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about forming a community, a vibrant tapestry of shared emotions woven through laughter, healing, and forgiveness. When the next meeting day arrived, anticipation swirled like autumn leaves. The room was set differently now, the air was filled with a palpable excitement. It was more than just a gathering, it was the promise of unity. As participants filed in, they buzzed with hope, sparked by the idea of bringing a furry friend into their circle. Jake took a deep breath, reminding himself that they were on this journey together. Each person's challenge was still there, lingering beneath the surface, but so was the potential for joy. And then, the moment came. Lily entered the room, her radiant smile lighting up the space as she enthusiastically called out, "Max, come show everyone how awesome you are." As the K9 bounded in, tail wagging and tongue lolling, laughter filled the room. It was instant, it was infectious, and it was precisely what they all needed. In that moment, Jake witnessed transformation unfolding. The space crackled with energy, laughter melting away the burdens that had been so heavy. For some, it was the first time in ages they felt themselves smiling without a shadow of doubt holding them back. "Max can smell sadness," Lily exclaimed, patting the dog. "He'll show you how to feel better." Jake laughed and nodded. "That's absolutely right. Max has a magic of his own, a kind of magic that helps us see what really matters." He felt the warmth of the room, of the people gathered around him, hearts open and vulnerable. As the light-hearted introductions continued, Jake noticed the older gentleman from previous meetings, sitting comfortably with Max at his feet. A transformation was evident on his face. Skepticism had slipped away, replaced by a soft, hopeful expression. "Jake, why don't we share our worries about the shadows we still keep?" The man spoke, his voice calm but laced with conviction. "With Max, it might be easier." Everyone nodded, realizing that they were ready for more than sharing their moments of light. They were prepared to face the shadows together. When best friends Max and Lily hovered nearby, it seemed like a gentle nudge from the universe reminding them that healing doesn't often come from facing pain alone in the dark. Jake harnessed that energy, leaning into the conversation. "How about we make this a tradition? Every week we can encourage each other to share our little moments of struggle and joy." Voices chimed in from everywhere, normalizing pain and lifting them to new heights. Lily interjected, "And Max can remind us to smile." Minutes flew by, stories flowed, and laughter filled the room as healing poured into every crevice. Jake felt the transformation happening not just in himself but in everyone. They were growing together. It was during a quieter moment, as they fell into a lull of shared silence, when one woman bravely offered, "I've been struggling to forgive myself for a long time. It feels like a weight I can't seem to put down." "Let us unpack that," Jake encouraged gently. "What's holding you back?" Support rippled through the group, each voice rising to assure her she was not alone. She spoke, her words filled with vulnerability and a surprising lightness. The energy in the room shifted again, the heaviness giving way to compassion. As she shared her truth, Max trotted over, nestled at her feet, the simple, fluffy embodiment of love and understanding. As they made space for one another's burdens, Jake looked around the room and saw transformation everywhere, connections forming, hands reaching out, hearts open to healing. The laughter intertwined with shared struggles formed a beautiful melody of resilience echoing in their midst. Maybe this was the change he had hoped for, a realization that healing isn't a solitary journey, it's one filled with uplifting connections that keep lifting you higher. At the end of the meeting, as people exchanged hugs and goodbyes, a warmth filled Jake's soul. The meeting had been a kaleidoscope of emotions, fear confronting joy, pain mingling with laughter that stitched their community together in ways he had never imagined. With Max playfully nipping at Lily's heels, the two bounded toward the door, leaving Jake standing there, heart full. He realized that he had found his purpose. Through sharing stories, laughter, and unconditional love, each person was forging their path to healing. And as he left the center that day, he knew that together, they would face whatever shadows lay ahead, fortified by the strength of community, hope, and the honest magic that only comes from sharing. This was just the beginning. Don't wait not even one more second to share this extraordinary journey with someone who needs to hear it. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spark more transformations. And comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends. True fans understand the importance of supporting our journey together. Let us make sure no one walks this path alone.